Right, so I made a video on the previous lamp that was a bit like this one, but not this one. So the main problem I had was because I was using the forward mode on a phone to pick up what my hands were doing. I couldn't actually see, and it ended up like this off the screen all the time. So doing it again, forward facing, and this is the lamp. Unlike the last one, where I actually cut a switch out, the switch on the previous lamp was at this kind of height. It was accessible at hand. This is a floor standing lamp with one of those stand-on switches. I'm going to leave the stand-on switch in place, but just leave it permanently on and hope that the kids don't mess with it. And that just means that you've got two switches in series, so as long as one's kept permanently on, it doesn't really affect operation. So I'm just going to bring a bit of wire through here. I'm going to make sure it's unplugged from the wall, because I've made that mistake once already and blown the 3 amp fuse. So safety first, make sure that your wires are disconnected before you start cutting them. Right, and then this is the input to the sonoff. So on the sonoff, you should read there that you've got inputs, outputs. It's reading it backwards, but this goes in the input side, so that side. So I've been trying to make them as neat as possible, and I think that if you put like a pinky's worth, a small finger, pinky's worth of insulation off, then that is just the right amount to get the serrated grips that exist in the basics. And so there's some serrations that grip the wire, and yeah, a pinky's worth is just enough, I find. Yeah, just taking the inner off now very, very carefully, because I don't want to wreck, or don't want to take more conducting strands than is. Yeah, I don't want to take any of them, because it derates the ampacity value of your lamp. Not that it's as important these days, because LEDs consume far less than their equivalent filament lamps, but nevertheless good practice to try and keep things as in a good a condition as possible. So yeah, just putting that ferrule on there and using my Blost Dumb crimpers, which are brilliant. Well, I find they're great. It just helps neaten everything up if you've got stranded stuff. Not really that important for solid, I don't think, but definitely is useful for stranded stuff. And this is 0.75 millimeters squared, so 22 AWG. Just do it so you've got enough to see the blue and the blue and the brown inner, so the neutral and the live respectively. So this is the input, as I said, so that way round, into there, there. So I need to just back out the screws so they're flush with the top of the green connector. And yeah, a bit of a fiddle to get them both in at the same time. There you go, push them in home and just hold it nice and firm. Just double check my wires, yep, neutral's to blue. And this is the input, because it's going to this wall. I had one of these fail. Well, it's not so much fail, but I suppose it's a failure. These are sonoff basics. They've been flashed using tasmota via a serial cable, so it's like a hardware flash, as opposed to a software. Well, yeah, you're flashing firmware, so you're rewriting the software that lives on the embedded chips on the device. But there's two ways to achieve that, and one is to attach a serial FTDI a cable, a serial cable, to some headers soldered to the board. And the other way that's more recent is when Sonoff brought out their DIY mode, which is essentially an over-the-air, over-the-Wi-Fi mechanism for flashing the same firmware. Some clever folk have provided some nice scripts, and this one I used in particular, it came from Mr. DIY's video, but it's built on a British guy's work. It's on Mac and Linux, not Windows. So this script, I use my wife's Mac. I'm not really a Mac user. So yeah, that works perfectly. It basically, the script goes away and it searches your Wi-Fi that the computer's attached to, and it will find any EWE-link devices, and I guess it enumerates them if there's more than one. I guess it just works, but I only had the one attached at the time. And what I do know is after you've flashed it, it no longer presents as a EWE-link device, it presents as a tasmota, because I ran the script twice just to see, because I was worried that what the script didn't do was didn't tell me that it finished flashing the device or not. So by running the script twice, it was kind of like a sanity test to see whether it had flashed it or not. And the worst that can happen when you're doing that is that you temporarily brick the device, and that you would need to use a serial connection and solder some stuff to the board to retrieve an operating system, a kind of firmware or back on the chip that would run the chip again. So yeah, you can brick them, but there's still a way out. But thankfully it didn't. It worked first time. I've read and comments where people have done exactly the same as what I tried to do, and they ended up having to switch the thing on and off several times, like 7 times, just to get it to come back to life, which is true of this tasmota stuff as well. Sometimes it goes wrong, and to get it back into its own access point mode where it's presenting itself rather than as a client, you have to turn it off and on and off and on and off and on a number of times, and then on again, and then just look for your Wi-Fi devices. Anyway, right, just popping these ferrules on. I've done a quite neat job there. I'm quite proud of that. And I just crimp them and make sure, because the screw terminals here are quite shallow, and you get these, I can't really show you without bringing it closer, and I can't bring it closer, but my crimp, yours may be different, but my crimp makes about 3 little indents which provide 4 little raised bumps, 4 little sections to the crimp, and I think you probably only need 2 to get to the depth that you need for these screw terminals. So I basically cut them in the middle, and then I look and focus because I want to get the polarity right. Back these screw terminals out a bit again. So this is the 4th one in my house so far. I've got my bedroom bedside lamps, which were a bargain. They were from Argos in the UK. They were on sale for £12, down from 18. And my wife was going to buy a lamp with USB attached, which is fine, like, don't have any problem with extra functionality and things, but the price of them was £50, and I wasn't even loving the aesthetic of it. It sort of seemed like what I'd sort of class as like things that are trying to appeal to rich oligarchs, but actually are quite chintzy and quite horrible, like gaudy. So anyway, convinced her that I could do a better job. So for less than half of the same money, we now have 2 lamps, and I will make it a project of mine to create the extra thing of it having an attached bedside table and USB functionality, which is dead easy to do and shouldn't cost you another £38 for the privilege. So yeah, I've attached Sonoff Basics to those two upstairs, and they're all smartened up now, and this is now smartened up, and so is the one that was in my other video. So that's 4 smart ones, and had 5 of these Sonoffs, but one of them has decided that it no longer wants to be a working thing, insomuch that I'm just making sure it kind of wraps around here, insomuch that it will present itself to the wireless network in its own access point mode, but it will not attach as a client. It keeps pretending that my credentials are wrong, which isn't true, because I've done this several times with the same credentials. You know, my password for the website, not the website, the password for the access point. So it's just a frustration that it doesn't want to work. Right, let's feed that under there and see whether this one works as well. Excuse me. Turned on, no bangs hopefully. And what's gone wrong there is that's not turned on, and now it's on because the green LEDs come on. So first test is, now that's flashing, do that. You can't really see that, but it's come back on. I don't know whether it got brighter. Not massively, but it is working. So let's tidy up my crimps and what have you. And the next thing to try is to see whether my Home Assistant has picked it up. So get the app open on my phone. So this is talking to a Raspberry Pi in my house, and previously this had been on an IKEA lamp. So what is it going to be called? It's called tertial IKEA lamp. There we go. So now it's working from my phone, and that's because of tasmota and MQTT. So there's a bit of setting up to do there, both in the device. You have to set up via its web page once you've attached it to your home network, and then there's also some setup within Home Assistant where you need to install a tasmota integration and you need to install MQTT, and there's I think it's the broker and the password is the most important bits of it. But it takes a while to wrap your head around all the little moving parts for a tasmatized Sonoff talking to Home Assistant locally on your home network. Easier were things like the Toya switches and the Kalex Toya things, which I bought from Tesco. But the thing with Toya is it's relying on that outside, what do you call it, an application outside of your control. So I've got both working, but I'm kind of leaning towards systems whereby it's completely within my control and I know where the data's going and whatnot. So yeah, I'm pleased with that. I've got 4 working smart lamps in my house as it stands, and the next step is to get all the fixed lighting into the same kind of state, and I'm going to do that with Sonoff Mini R2s with tasmota flashed over the air, and hopefully do some more snazzy things with those. So having seen another YouTuber, I forget what he's called, but he had an excellent thing to do with utilizing multiple GPIOs on the Sonoff R2, and that using switches which are just kind of single presses, but they're rocket switches, and what he was demonstrating was that, say if your smart light had a dimming capability, you could actually use two GPIOs on the up or the down, and then you dim it up or dim it down from the wall switch, not actually using the relay as such, but using a smart bulb. It didn't have to be dimming, it could be something like RGB, like red, green, blue color cycling, but the same kind of idea. I even wonder whether it's possible with a GPIO to sense a resistivity in a wire. So if you can do that, I wonder whether you can use a rotary dial. So you'd have a on-off software switch and maybe even a rotary, because GPIOs can be set into an analog mode. I just don't know whether that's something that tasmota is capable of sensing. I'm just not aware of that yet. That's possibly something I need to do some research on. Anyway, I've been rambling enough, and I think I've shown what I needed to show, which is a Sonoff R1 basic with tasmota through Home Assistant, in line with a normal switch. So if somebody uses that normal switch, it's going to knock this off, but it seemed the path of least resistance to get it somewhere easy for when you've put your phone down or your book down to turn the light off. This switch on the floor was a bit of a nuisance, if I'm honest. And I can always take it off and just put a straight through connector in, but it's not hurting me. Right, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.